Good morning, this is Ruthie, and my mother is out of town at the moment, haha, yes, which I thought would give me the perfect opportunity to go up to her bedroom and show you something quite remarkable. My mother has a very cool bedroom, it's up the stairs, here we go. She's nowhere in here, oh, how convenient. Okay, I want to show you something. Down here, this is one of her numerous wardrobes. Ta-da! This is a very interesting place. I live under the philosophy, the hope, that this might actually be the wardrobe she keeps my birthday present in, and my birthday present is next month, so let's hope it's in here somewhere. Ooh, that's attractive. She give me that. Oh, never mind. This is not a video telling you that you should open your mother's closet when she's out of town and pinch her nicest hats, although seriously, the woman's got good taste. I mean, look at that. You could wear that to the races. Absolutely beautiful. But that's not why I'm here to talk to you, what I'm here to talk to you about. I want to talk to you today about getting your prayers answered, okay? This is something we're going to find an answer in my mother's wardrobe. Now, a few years ago, my mother wanted a designer handbag. Now, designer handbags obviously cost a lot of money, several $1,000s, and she wasn't going to spend that sort of money on a handbag, but she certainly wasn't going to live without the handbag. She said to me, I've decided I want a Prada handbag. And I said, well, you won't buy it because you think they're massively overpriced. How are you going to get it? She said, I'm going to pray for it. I said to my mother, are you sure you can pray for a designer handbag? Don't you think that's a little bit, you know, maybe frivolous? She just looked at me and she said, you just watch me. So she prayed for one, and the next day she came back with this. See that? That is Prada, and it's not a knockoff. That is a very, very expensive handbag. My mother paid $15 for it in the Salvation Army. And it, as I say, isn't a knockoff, because when she showed it to my father, he said, I bet that's a knockoff. And after, you know, putting his scientific brain to the problem of proving it was a knockoff, he had to conclude it wasn't. Now, why am I telling you this? Because, well, in the first place, it's just really useful to know that if there's something you can't afford, you can always pray for it. That's just a useful tip for life. You're welcome. That's what I live for, to be helpful. But there is a more serious reason to why it is important to pray for small things like handbags, which are nicer than you actually can afford, but you want them anyway. There is a real value to praying for these things, and I'm going to explain it to you. I want you to imagine that your great uncle, 7 times removed, called Christophanus, who lives in Portugal. I made that up. I'm such a writer. Again, yes, I'm amazing. Sorry, this is not a lesson on humility, as you can see. This is a lesson on prayer. Let's say that for your 16th birthday, you went and got your driver's license, and your good old uncle Christophanus, who you'd never heard of before, suddenly sent you a present, and you got up on the morning of your birthday, and sitting there was the most amazing bright red, brand new Ferrari. Yes, all for you from your wildly wealthy, good-natured, that's a bit more tidy, isn't it, than the hats in the background, good-natured Uncle Christophanus. So, you're very pleased about this, obviously. You go to your parents and you say, oh, look what great Uncle Christophanus sent me for my birthday, a brand new red Ferrari. And your parents are like, oh, they're half awake. Oh, what? No, you must be dreaming. No, it's out there sitting next to your less than wonderful Toyota Corolla, but it's my Ferrari. So they go out there and they look at this, and then they look at you, and you're 15 years old, and you've only had your license for a few weeks. And you're like, I'm going to drive this thing to Sydney as fast as it can go. And your parents say, no, you're not. And you say, excuse me? And they're like, no, you've only been driving for 2 weeks. And quite frankly, we think the idea of you driving by yourself in a powerful Ferrari to Sydney is a high-risk situation. And in all likelihood, you will just drive off that bridge over the ravine. And that'll be the end of you and your Ferrari. So you can go back to bed, sleep to a reasonable hour, and then we'll organise takeaways for your birthday party. But you want to drive your Ferrari. So you go on and on and on and on at your parents, and they eventually say, well, you can sit in the Ferrari. So you sit in the Ferrari, your brand new Ferrari, and you decide to turn it on. And you get a big shock because the gas tank is empty. There's no gas in your Ferrari, and your parents are very pleased. They suddenly realise that your great uncle was not quite the nincompoop they thought, because they realise, well, you can't get anywhere in your Ferrari. Now, let's say you go to your parents and you say, I want to drive my Ferrari. I want to drive it so much. And they say, well, of course you do, but you can't, can you? Because there's no gas in your Ferrari, and the nearest petrol station is 5 miles away, and we're certainly not driving you there to fill up your Ferrari because, quite frankly, you need a few more lessons. I mean, let's not even start on the hose reel you squashed the other day. There's no way you're driving that thing. And you start begging and begging and begging and begging, please, I want to drive my Ferrari, please, please, please. Your parents get worn down by this. And in the end, your father, who likes to think of himself as being both the reasonable and funny spouse in the marriage, I have one of these fathers, decides that he's going to teach you a lesson and stop your whining because it's really getting on his nerves. So he says to you this, he says, you can drive your Ferrari when you have filled up the tank with gas. And you're like, no problem, so just drive me to the petrol station and we'll buy the gas. And your father says, no. You have to walk to the petrol station. You have to buy the gas. Then you have to walk back and you have to pour it into the tank. And when you've filled the tank up, you can drive your Ferrari. Well, it's a long walk, but you really want to drive this car. So you say, okay, and you go out into the shed and you get the biggest bucket you can find. And your father looks at that and says, by the time you fill that up, you will not have the strength to carry it. Ha ha ha. Fortunately, I have an alternative container. And he reaches out for, wait a minute. Oh, here it is. I've lost it. He brings you this, an egg cup. And he says to you, if you really want to drive your Ferrari, you need to walk 5 miles to the gas station, one way, buy an egg cup's worth of gasoline, walk back, pour it into the tank, and then keep doing that until you fill up the tank of your car. And when you've filled up the tank, then you'll be able to drive. Now, what you're going to find out in this situation is very interesting. You're actually going to find out how much do you truly want to drive your Ferrari. How much do you truly want to drive yourself to Sydney in a Ferrari? Because it's going to require a lot of tenacity. Tenacity means you're going to have to stick at it even when you get tired, even when you want to give up, even when you're fed up with it, even when you think your dad's the meanest dad in the world and you really just want to move to Portugal and shift in with your wise uncle who sent you this lovely car. Nevertheless, if you really want to drive that car, you will make the effort. And in the time it takes to fill up the tank of your Ferrari with this egg cup, you will actually become a better, safer driver because you will not get that done overnight. It's going to take a lot of walking, which means in the meantime you'll be practicing in the Toyota Corolla with your parents. You're becoming a safer driver. You will be developing the skills to drive that big, powerful car. And by the time you get into the car, you will really value the car in a way you didn't when it was just a present, because you have now made a substantial effort towards getting that car on the road. How does this tie into Prada handbags and getting your prayers answered? In life, there are two sorts of requests you're going to make from God. One is just for pleasure. You just want it. That's number one. You just want something. The other one is it is life altering. Now, it is easier to get the prayer regarding just a little bit of pleasure answered than the life-altering prayer answered. You are going to have a much, much higher success rate And you will not have to wait so long if you pray for a Prada handbag than if you pray for a husband. Why is this? The handbag can really be given to you almost immediately because it is not going to have any long-term consequences on your life. It may, but it almost certainly won't. Whereas who you marry will affect everything. It will affect where you live, it will affect what you become, it will affect who your children are. It's pretty much the biggest prayer that you can ask, so you're going to have to wait a long time. And like the picture I showed you of the Ferrari that has to be filled up with the air cup, the way we prepare ourselves for a really big answer to prayer is we have to make a little bit of effort. And even though the effort is small, see, it's not a big deal to carry an air cup of gasoline. Most of us can do that. What counts is you're going to have to do it again and again and again and again and again. I don't know how many air cups of petrol it takes to fill up a car, but I do know if the garage is 5 miles away and you have to walk 5 miles down there with your empty air cup and then 5 miles back, the time it takes you to fill up your car is a serious investment of time. And it's tiring. It's really tiring. You're going to get so depressed because you're going to look at that. You know, when you first put the thing in, it'll just disappear. It almost feel like it's just sort of, what is it? It just looks like grease on the bottom of the tank. Won't do anything, right? Okay, that is how praying for big things in life is going to feel, whether you're praying for a house, whether you're praying for a husband, whether you're praying to move countries, whether you're praying for money. Whatever the big prayer is, it's going to require you ask God again and again and again. Please, God, I want this. Please, God, I want this. Please, God, I want this. And you're going to have to keep asking Him, just like in my story, you had to keep walking with the air cup to the gas station. However, let's say you just have a stain on your shirt and you need a little bit of petrol to remove that stain, which interestingly enough you can do if it's the right sort of stain. If you go and get an air cup of gasoline for that, the reward you get is much more instant. So you realize through the small use that in the long run there can be a very good use if you just keep filling up your cup. This is why I'm saying, when you want something like a Prada handbag, or or a toy that your parents won't buy you because they say, oh, we can't afford it, or anything at all, pray to God for it. Pray to God for it, because God can do miracles. And God, it says in the Bible, God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And coming from a New Zealand viewpoint, I can tell you that is a very big farm and we're talking a lot of money. So He's not under any limitations. You must get into a habit from your childhood of praying for small things, because the small things will come much, much faster. If you pray for a certain sort of handbag or a certain sort of toy or a certain sort of bike's probably more mid-range. You're going to have to work on that one for a while, but certainly the smaller the item, the quicker you're going to get it. Every time you do that, you are filling up your egg cup with faith. Faith is the gasoline that powers the vehicle of prayer. If you have a Ferrari but you don't have gasoline, you're not going to get any further than anyone driving a Toyota Corolla with gas. In fact, they're going to outstrip you because they have the gas to get them somewhere. Prayer is the same way. If you pray but you don't believe, it's like owning a Ferrari without gas. But if you believe and you don't bother to pray, it's like having a lot of gas without the Ferrari. You have to put the two together if you're going to progress in life. And the reason I say you must ask God for small things all the time, whether it's help on your test, whether it's a sunny day, whether it's a certain piece of clothing and that you want and you don't think you can get, you need to make these small requests a daily part of your life, because when you get the small answers, very, very quickly, the thing you prayed for, like my mother's bag, ceases to be important. The desire is fulfilled, so you forget that you even have it. What you will never forget is the fact that you got an answered prayer. God heard you and God responded. And because small things are easier to get answered, you have to pray for small things all the time. Because when you pray for a lot of small things, eventually you are going to have enough faith to get really big prayers answered, but you build it up day by day, asking for small things. Now, there are some Christians who will say, oh, I never pray for myself. I just pray for other people. Newsflash, those people are not praying nearly enough. The Bible says pray about everything, and that certainly includes you. Also, prayer and faith, it's a spiritual game, and to win it, you have to practice it. You must practice praying, and you must practice praying for very small things, because when you get an answer, your faith goes up. And every time your faith goes up, your power as a person of prayer increases because your belief goes up. So I want you to go out this week, and I want you to start praying for small things. Don't tell your parents about the prayer. Don't tell your teachers about the prayer. Don't tell me about the prayer. Don't tell anyone about what you're praying for. Start with something small and build up your faith, because when you tell no one and you still get an answer, you're going to know for sure there's a God in heaven. He loves you and he's answering prayer. And every time you do that, you are going to become spiritually more powerful, because your faith will increase. And eventually, if you fill up enough air cups, your prayers will be as powerful as a Ferrari driving you to Sydney. Love you lots. Bye-bye.